Hello, and welcome to the final episode in this season of The Age. We thank you for your patience as we're about to discuss what is possibly the largest technological element in modern society, the Internet. The Internet has become a far cry from its simple origins from the 1990s, and we have all introduced it into our lives. It has become an improvement in many regards, but it can also prove to be a major distraction from traditional activities. We have our guest, Adam Swinchock, to talk about how the Internet has been connecting with our students here at Peters Township. Pause it. All right. Move it to that. All right. Ready to start?
Yep. Sure.
Go for it.
Okay. First up, why are middle schools not allowed to use school Wi-Fi?
Well, I think one of the reasons that we prohibit student Wi-Fi usage at the middle school right now is a lot about the age group more than anything else. We're working with teachers and staff members and community members to kind of determine if our students are really ready for that responsibility that our students have here at the high school. We're thinking about introducing some type of plan where, similar to getting a driver's license, you end up getting a permit at the middle school where you're allowed to go on certain sites and be able to do certain things, but not the internet in its entirety.
So you assume that the big problem is that it's determining certain responsibilities of certain and histories of certain students.
We try not to, identify individual students, but we try to do it as a collective and think about the age group that we're working with. And we want to make sure that the students are not only responsible online, but are also shielded from things that they shouldn't necessarily have access to.
So yeah, basically it's not as simple as let everyone who is at least 13 years old on.
Correct. No, I would love it for that to be that simple, but unfortunately it's not always that cut and dry.
All right. Next up, how can students learn to handle balance online?
Well, I think that's a tough one to answer. Each student and each family is very different. So depending on what their lifestyles are and their needs are, that can determine what balance is between an unhealthy or a healthy relationship with an online presence. For me, I spend a lot of time online because I need to do a lot of work online, and a lot of the students that we have here in our school district still require those types of things, but I think it's about what you do online, whether or not you have a healthy balance between everyday life and online life.
So I guess it relates to how the cell phone usage online, which we'll get to in a certain bit. Which brings me to our next question. How should some form of online training to be introduced?
Well, I think what we're thinking about doing, especially at our middle school and lower levels, is think about online training programs that are already integrated into our curriculum, where students actually get almost like a learner's permit to be able to access certain resources online, to be able to use their phones in the classroom, rather than just waiting for a laptop and a teacher to be able to be on site for them to access it.
So how early do you think in a student's life would you apply that?
Well, I think it's situational, but in our cases, a lot of our kindergartners access a lot of online resources in order to utilize the curriculum that we have here at Peters Township. So it starts as early as you essentially want it to, based on your task.
All right. So it could mention that why is cell phone usage becoming a major problem on school property?
Well, that has a lot to do with signal strength and capacity more than anything else. As you know, probably many of our students know, as you drive throughout the township, our cellular coverage is not exactly stellar, and in some cases you may have 1 bar, 2 bars. That actually gets further restrictive as you go into buildings, and building materials impact that. So as you work your way inside our building, you'll find that you just don't have a signal because there is no signal on the outside. We're working with providers right now to try and boost that signal presence and hopefully benefit not only our students but our township members as well.
All right. Do you think the recent introductions of the whole 5G thing that's going on recently would help?
Absolutely, Zach. That is a great question. And we think, in our case, 5G is going to be a great addition to our township. The use of microcells is really going to increase the capabilities of our township, but also the coverage in our township. We're hopeful that whenever it is launched in its entirety, we won't have to worry about cell phone coverage anymore.
So, Of course, would that installation be a little costly?
It definitely could be, and that's one of the things that is slowing down some of the projects. However, you'll see it being currently deployed in other areas of the nation. I know Tampa, Orlando, many cities in Arizona and California have already deployed 5G pretty extensively.
Yeah. Right. What are some other online related problems that are going about the schools?
That's really something that we can't talk about, only because there are privacy issues that are associated with that. But just know that there are always issues that we have to deal with, and it's a never-ending struggle.
So, yeah, you're not quite comfortable discussing about certain commonly used rule-breaking websites?
Unfortunately, privacy laws prevent me from talking about those things.
It's a pretty good transition to ask, why do we filter online content in the first place?
Well, a lot of it has to do with it's a federal law. So the Children's Internet Protection Act actually prevents us from allowing students to access certain content that is considered to be a no-no, pornography and offensive sites being one of those things. So in order for us to get some of our funding from the federal government as a reimbursement for our internet connection, we have to follow certain rules.
Rules. I could imagine federal law always keeps evolving as the internet does.
Actually, you would be surprised. That is something that really hasn't evolved that much over the years. And that is one of the things that the FCC is really striving to do right now, is to overhaul those rules and make them a little bit more modern. Really, they're basically from the late 90s and the early 2000s. And as you know, the internet has changed dramatically since those times.
Oh, man. Could explain why so many websites have weird rules.
They do.
Yeah. Well, influential do you think the internet has become here on school grounds?
I think it's been life-changing and game-changing in a lot of places. How often can you take a field trip to go see the pyramids in Egypt? But you can take a virtual field trip to do that now, thanks to the internet. It affects our students and our staff members at every grade level, and after they leave the district as well.
Well, they could have made the field trip to foreign lands a heck of a lot cheaper then.
They could, absolutely.
Yeah, so those weird programs could improve some lessons, as you may say. So, a more specific question, but why do students have to log in every single time they would log on to the internet?
Well, accountability is also a key part of what we do here in the district. Prior to us instituting the login procedures this year, as you know, we only have about 1,400 students here in our high school. But at any given time, we may have had 3,000 to 4,000 devices actually connected to our network. So what that tells us is that a lot of students were trying to sneak devices in and connect them to our network, as opposed to letting us know exactly what's happening. By having you log into your BYOD account all the times, that adds a name to the activity that's going on your phone or your personal device as you use them in class. And it tends to deter the very shady behavior that may happen sometimes.
So I guess you can say that multi-device setups are probably one of the more scummy things that probably happen.
Not always. In a lot of cases, they were being done for valid activities. But sometimes students like to try and get away with it.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen often, but it does happen.
So, of course, what do you say about other students who would complain about slow Wi-Fi issues?
It's a trade-off. What we have to be able to do is, through our internet connection, support all the educational activities of the district, K to 12. And we only have certain amounts of bandwidth available in order to do that. Right now we have a gigabit that goes out the door in order for our students to be able to access at K to 12. So we have to make sure that not everybody is streaming high-def YouTube videos, music videos, to make sure that bandwidth is available for all types of activities that are here that are educationally related.
Right. How do teachers incorporate all sorts of online related activities in the actual classes?
It depends on the teacher, and it depends on the subject level. Some teachers may use those resources like Google Docs in order to collaborate with their students in a virtual environment. Some may use augmented reality or virtual reality, again, to take field trips and show resources that the students otherwise wouldn't be able to access unless they had those capabilities. It pretty much depends on whatever the teacher is trying to do for that particular piece of curriculum or class period.
So I guess, is there any sort of class that you wish they would incorporate a little more of this sort of thing into?
Every class we want educational technology incorporated into, because the reality is once students leave these walls, it's going to be a permanent part of what they do, either the collegiate or business atmosphere. We want to make sure that those students are comfortable running all the resources that are available. It's one of the reasons that we run so many different operating systems as you go throughout your career. Students become exposed to iOS devices, Windows devices, Chromebook devices, Mac devices, and we're even trying to sprinkle in a little bit of Linux. So no matter what you go and do, you've been exposed to that, and you can choose your operating system and application suite depending upon what you want to accomplish.
Oh, yes. That sounds like an excellent way to prepare for future lives. There's one program I like to bring up is Power School and middle school. What would you say about Power School of how it keeps students on track of their grades and stuff?
Well, I think it depends on the students, because sometimes you can see that it doesn't necessarily keep them on track. The reality is they have to check the resource in order to make sure that they are on track. It gives students the ability to access it from a web page, or if they have a cell phone or an iWatch or smartphone, their grades can automatically be shown on that device as they're changed. So as Mr. Bastos or Ms. Bonnet actually enters a grade, a student is immediately aware of what their position is in the classroom and what they have to do in order to make sure that they keep their grades at a satisfactory level.
Yeah. Oh. It's easy to forget how hard it must be to check grades back when this sort of thing wasn't even invented yet.
Absolutely. I didn't have that when I was in school, and I probably would have been a better student had I had something like that.
How is the school planning for numerous software improvements in its future?
Well, what we do is we meet with facilitators for subject levels and really talk about where their curriculum is headed for the next couple of years. And we allocate budget resources based on the needs and the desires of the classroom teacher. Really, instruction drives everything that we do here. The tail does not wag the dog. We don't buy devices and say, here you go, use them. We want to make sure that everything that we put into our school is done for a reason and has a purpose.
So yeah, I could imagine such a situation if the people in charge of that is unaware of some new software that can benefit them.
Absolutely. And that's part of my role, is to make sure that a lot of our staff members are aware of new and wonderful resources that are out there that may help them in their instruction.
Yes. How would they improve the tech in general in the new high school being built?
Well, in general, the infrastructure is going to be designed specifically to handle large amounts of data. In our case right here in the high school, we don't have a large backbone, but in the high school we have a significant backbone. The switching is going to be designed to handle a lot of students and a lot of devices and a lot of multimedia.
So yeah, I guess you can say it's one of the main goals of the new project.
Absolutely.
Right. I do know that you've heard that you have a partnership with Aquos. What are your plans going forward with that?
Well, we have loose partnerships with a lot of different vendors, but we have used the Sharp Aquos board for our interactive displays, and it's been a fairly beneficial project for us. And we feel like they're a strong partner for us moving forward, especially with our interactive display strategy.
After introducing this Aquos board, what other kinds of devices are currently being planned to be incorporated?
Lots of touch devices, lots of personal devices, AR, VR, artificial intelligence, tons of different things are going to be available for students in this new facility.
So yeah, I could imagine there's a lot of company partnerships also being added on top of Aquos.
Well, and that's what we're trying to do. We really want to bridge that gap between just education and commercial partnerships to make sure that we're benefiting our students the best way possible.
Excellent. Now back onto the filters. How does the school will take full controls of what websites are allowed, what websites are not? on such and such?
Well, based on the categories that are required by law, we essentially make sure that those are blocked. And then we work with staff members to make sure that certain types of games are not available, and sometimes that overblocks things in classrooms. But we have a help desk system where teachers are able to say, hey, I would like the site unblocked, where we're able to actually enter those resources into our system and make sure that they are actually unblocked in the classroom.
Can you discuss more detail about the process to make a site available or not available for all students to use?
Sure, it's more along the lines of teacher asks for, the student or the teacher may ask for it based on the educational value in the classroom, and we just review it to make sure that it doesn't inadvertently violate any laws that may be out there. Some of the websites that are out there actually springboard onto other services that are not exactly up to par. So we spend a lot of time taking a look at those resources to make sure that there's nothing hidden in the fine print to make sure that we meet all the requirements that we have by law.
Yeah. I could imagine this process might be a little tricky with the sheer amount of websites being introduced onto the interwebs over the years.
It does, but we're very lucky that we work with providers through our filtering system where they actually look at a lot of these things and recategorize things as they come up.
So, yeah. Why should major adults monitor their children outside the school?
Well, we try not to say monitor, we try and say partner. So we want to make sure that parents are involved with what their students are doing online, to make sure that they're having good discussions and really watching, what they're doing as they're surfing and become active participants in that whole process. I think that's a better way to approach it, more as a partnership than an actual just monitoring and a surveillance type of system.
So basically, don't just put up a firewall and call it a day.
Yes, because that tends to attract attempts to circumvent things. Making it taboo makes people want to do it more and more.
That's pretty much a basic fact of humanity. Why should the district community need to evaluate the process?
As far as websites are concerned?
Probably.
I think it should always be a continuum of service. So we want to make sure that we're always meeting the needs of our teachers and our students, and we're not just blocking things or unblocking things at random to make sure that everybody's protected and the laws are met. But we're also, again, servicing our classrooms the way that they're supposed to be.
Okay. Given how phones can be often a distracting students from overall assignments, what made the school's decision to continue to let the students bring these devices in?
Well, I think, again, I was not here while the BYOD initiative was undertaken, but in a lot of times, BYOD is undertaken because most students already have access to those devices, and it allows students to have access to those resources without having to acquire a large set of devices from a local spend. One of the ways that you kind of combat that distraction is activities have to be engaging for students, and they have to be authentic, because if those learning experiences are authentic, students really don't want to spend time looking at things that they're not supposed to. If they're actively engaged and they're an active participant in the whole process, they're engaged in what they're doing, and it's not so much about Facebook and Twitter.
So yeah, do not want to say names, but I'm sure there are plenty of students, would argue plenty of teachers should really keep this in mind more.
Well, that's good to know, but we're always willing to help them do that. And we definitely don't want to say names.
Why should students be able to use the internet during actual classes, not just during like study halls or lunches or times off?
Well, I think it goes back to one of the other questions you asked. It should be ed tech resources should be ingrained in the curriculum that we have. So every period, every day, there should be those resources should be available no matter what class is available, just because the content may require it.
So out of all the platforms, clouds for like documents, it's presentations, and all this sorts of stuff, what caused the school to decide Google Classroom as their main source for this sort of thing?
Well, I think we've let that up to the teachers more than anything else to determine what resource meets their best needs. Now, we are in the process of evaluating a district-wide system, and we're trying to choose between solutions such as Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, Schoology, to really bring that all together and be able to train our staff members effectively and make sure that they're accessing those resources appropriately and getting the most bang for their buck.
So you would continue to have quite a lot of contact with the teachers in this field.
Yes, they're probably tired of talking to me by now.
Yes. Would. What are the impressions the school has over using the Chromebooks over the years?
It's been a fantastic resource for us. It's a low-cost device that allows us to get resources into the classroom as opposed to some of the other more costly devices out there. They're very easy to use, but there are limitations with devices just like Chromebooks, just like anything else. You can't exactly install physical applications on those devices, so you have to be very selective in how you use those resources. They're mainly web services and collaboration machines, so you have to be aware that you don't want to put a Chromebook into a video editing class that requires something high-end, because in all likelihood it's not something you're going to be able to use.
So for most classes, those Chromebooks are not going to be disappearing anytime soon.
Probably not, but you always want to use the right tool. You wouldn't want to try and hammer in a screw to a board. You want to make sure you use the right tool in order to accomplish the goal that you have in the classroom.
Excellent. As for the main schools in computers for the stuff like the editing classes, what time does the school decide to quote-unquote upgrade these computers?
Well, there's a lot of factors that go into that. One of them being the requirements of the software that drive the machine that we have. We try and overbuild some of our video editing machines that it gives us a little bit extra life. But really, what we're trying to accomplish in the classroom and the requirements of the software really drive our circulation more than anything else. You'll find that our video editing machines and our higher end machines tend to get rotated out a little bit faster than our general usage machines, just because the application requires us to do so.
So, it could probably be pretty rare as far as what I've seen of the school. How do you think Peters Township stacks up to other competing school districts in this particular department?
Well, I think that's a tough thing to measure amongst other school districts, because budgets and populations and demographics tend to dictate IT departments and staffing, as well as functions in classrooms. But I think overall we stack up pretty well. We're a very lean shop, but we do a very good job servicing our staff members and our students in public in the community.
All right. How does the district maintain the overall budget to maintain its technology?
There is a specific line item for technology in our overall operating budget, and we work with our teachers in order to determine what that budget is going to be year to year, based on the needs and the desires of the classroom and the long-range planning that we have in place. But a lot of it's me.
I know you probably might be a little more recently. I mean, can you remember the first time, like the first year, this school district installed online resources?
I probably couldn't. I was probably still in high school whenever that happened, but I'm going to make an assumption that it was about the same time that I did it, and that was probably in the late 90s, not to date myself too much.
How do you help with other tech-related classes and curriculums?
In a variety of ways. A lot of the times we will work with teachers, or teachers will approach us to find new solutions to accomplish goals in their classrooms based on their curriculum. But everything that we do is task and curriculum based. It's not just, hey, here's a new solution, try and figure out how to make it work in your classroom. We work the opposite way. We want to make sure that everything we do is task driven.
Any examples you would like to share with the audience watching this?
Well, one of the examples is the ANSYS partnership that we have with our computer-aided design programs. The teachers actually brought that to us, and we designed systems around the requirements for that software and the goals and objectives of the actual class. So we basically take their lead to determine what we need to accomplish and the solutions we need to put in place.
Brilliant. How does the school affect technological use outside of its owned property?
Well, I think a lot of the resources that we use here end up driving what students and families choose in their own homes. If we are heavy Chromebook, you will find that a lot of the families end up going and get a Chromebook for their home because that's what their student is used to. And that's part of why we try and introduce students to a variety of operating systems and a variety of devices. We want them to choose what they want to be able to choose depending on what they want to pursue. If they're more musically inclined, if they're more video editing inclined, in a lot of cases Macs may be the better solution depending on what software you like to use. If it's just general usage or just collaboration via Google Docs, a Chromebook is a fantastic option for them. But we do have an impact on you and families as far as what devices they choose.
So what you're saying is the more programs you show to the students, and it's the better?
We like to think of ourselves as giving you the Swiss Army knife. We want you to be able to make good choices as you move on through your career and through life, to be able to select the right program and the right operating system and right device to better you and your life.
So, any final words of advice you would like to speak to the audience?
Just keep asking me back to do this. There are constantly things that are available, and when it comes to technology, you want to make sure that you're a lifelong learner. Things constantly change over in the IT world, and there are always new resources available. So my job is never boring. No 2 days are the same, and we're always trying to do bigger and better things for the district.
Excellent. All right, over the last 5 years, we went from a device-free establishment to a place where anyone could bring their own personal phones. We also became more involved with online related programs to evolve the education process. While the internet may still provide some issues in our present time, there is no denying that it shall continue to grow and flourish as time marches on.